PLA warplanes dropped thousands of munitions in South China Sea exercise. Several dozen JH-7 fighter bombers were used by a brigade of the PLA Southern Theater Command Naval Aviation Force. The Chinese People's Liberation Army, PLA, conducted a live-fire exercise in which warplanes dropped thousands of munitions at sea targets in the South China Sea, according to Chinese government-controlled Global Times. The exercise was done to enhance combat readiness and precision strike capabilities, as the warplanes flew at low altitudes and rained down bombs and anti-ship rockets, among others, at targets floating at sea. According to state broadcaster CCTV, several dozen JH-7 fighter bombers were used in the exercise by a brigade of the PLA Southern Theater Command Naval Aviation Force. Several thousand rockets, cannon rounds, and aerial bombs were fired and dropped during the exercise, CCTV reported. JH-7 fighter bomber. The Xi'an Jian Hong-7, Xi'an JH-7, also called the FBC-1 Flying Leopard, is a two-seat, twin-engine fighter bomber used by the People's Liberation Army Naval Air Force, PLANAF, and the People's Liberation Army Air Force, PLAF, since 1992. The Xi'an JH-7 was built to replace the PLAAF's aging fleet of Harbin H-5 and Nanchang Q-5 aircraft. The aircraft has a top speed of 1,808 km per hour, 1,123 miles per hour, a range of 1,759 kilometers, 1,093 miles, a length of 22 meters, 72 feet, a wingspan of 13 meters, 43 feet, and a cruise speed of 903 km per hour, 561 miles per hour. It can operate day and night, and in all weather conditions. The Xi'an JH-7 has four variants, namely JH-7A, JH-7B, FBC-1 Flying Leopard and FBC-1A Flying Leopard 2. Currently, there are about 70 JH-7 aircraft operating globally. U.S. warship in South China Sea. Although the exercises were conducted days after the guided missile destroyer USS Curtis Wilbur sailed near the Paracel Islands, Global Times reported analysts said it was not a targeted response. Chinese military expert Song Zhongping told the state media outlet that a single U.S. ship has limited capability and is not worthy of a targeted exercise. The Paracel Islands, which the Chinese call the Xi'an Islands, are located in the northwestern portion of the South China Sea. Beijing has asserted its authority over the island for more than 4 decades, contesting the claims of Vietnam and Taiwan. The Philippines has dramatically boosted South China Sea patrols. Data shows the Philippines has drastically stepped up its patrols in the South China Sea recently, and has come into closer contact with the China Coast Guard, according to ship tracking data. From March 1 to May 25, 13 law enforcement or military vessels from the Philippines visited waters around the contested Spratly Islands and Scarborough Shoal at least 57 times, the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative said. This was a substantial increase over the previous 10 months, when 3 vessels were tracked making 7 total visits to contested features, the report said. The Philippines has drastically stepped up its patrols in the South China Sea recently, and came into closer contact with the China Coast Guard, according to ship tracking data. Between March 1 to May 25, 13 law enforcement or military vessels from the Philippines visited waters around the contested Spratly Islands and Scarborough Shoal at least 57 times, the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, AMTI, said in a note this week. This was a substantial increase over the previous 10 months, when 3 vessels were tracked making 7 total visits to contested features, the report said. It pointed out that this boost in patrols is beyond anything seen in recent years, from the Philippines. The South China Sea has been a regional flashpoint in Asia, involving territorial disputes between some countries and China. The Philippines, Malaysia and Vietnam are among the countries that lay claim to parts of the waterway, but China sees much of the area, including Spratly Islands and Scarborough Shoal, as part of its territory. The AMTI, which is part of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, pointed out that the location of patrols by the Philippines has also changed. Before March, vessels from the Philippines, almost exclusively, traveled to and from the country's largest outpost in the Spratlys, Bituin Island. But recent patrols have included 2nd Thomas Shoal, which is occupied by the Philippines but patrolled daily by China, Whitsun Reef, where the recent militia swarm was detected, unoccupied Sabina Shoal near 2nd Thomas, and Scarborough Shoal, where China has maintained a permanent presence since 2012, AMTI said. The report reviewed tracking data from commercial provider Marine Traffic, and images from satellite firms Maxar and Planet Labs. Outsized and outgunned, AMTI outlined an incident in